Welcome to r/Tales from EMS, aka Tales from the Ambulance. Many of my viewers have requested in the past that I read more of these stories, so that is exactly what you are gonna get. Without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. The Poop Tub Incident. This one is an oldie but goldie, as it happened just a few weeks after I got my EMT. I was a bright-eyed and bushy-tailed 19-year-old ready to take on the world and was on my second ever 911 shift riding as a third. Call came in for chest pain and difficulty breathing, but when we arrived on scene, ALS was still chilling in their fly car, refusing to enter. Turns out this fella was a frequent flyer, a crusty, obese Vietnam veteran prone to pulling all sorts of crazy stuff. This time, as we would find out, he pulled some literal crap. His wife, smoking on the trailer porch, merely told us to check the bathroom. As soon as we entered, the smell of 1,000 rotting souls hit us. As it turned out, there was no actual cardiac emergency here. The patient who was about to shower was buck naked. Before showering, he decided to take a dump. Unfortunately, he had lost his balance while reaching for the stick he used to wipe himself, falling to the floor and wedging himself between the toilet and the tub. He had then proceeded to poo everywhere. So there he was, covered in poo and screaming obscenities at us as we tried to get him to his feet. When he was almost up, one of the firefighters assisting us lost his grip and the patient fell into the tub, releasing more poo. Guys, he was so fat his girth formed a vacuum seal with the tub walls, so he was literally suction cupped in place. The only way to get him out was to break the seal, and guess who had that honor? Me. We found some elbow-length rubber cleaning gloves and I had to ease my arms between his fat and the tub wall. The sound it made will haunt me to my dreams. Once he was up and the refusal signed, it took us a solid half an hour to get the poo off of everything. The image of that tub full of poo after he stood up is forever ingrained into my mind. Actually, I'm wondering if OP had to clean the poo off the room, because that's not exactly part of the job description, or he means the poo on all his equipment. Also, I really enjoy how the wife is just smoking on the porch like nothing happened. Anyway, on to the next EMT story. A day in the life of an EMT-B. Thin rays of light seep into the cab of the ambulance as the sun peaks over the horizon. Sights like this are not uncommon, working the brutal hours of inter-facility transport EMS. Not everyone can handle it, but medical emergencies don't wait for usual business hours. I nudge my partner and point to the gas station down the road. Stop there, I gotta grab a coffee. You gotta eat when you can in this line of work. Sleep when you can. EMTs ride the razor's edge of the present moment, never knowing when the tones are gonna drop. Though in this case, Miss Brown has to be at her dialysis appointment by 9. I enter the premises and take a moment to survey the scene to see if anyone is in need of my assistance. No blood on the floor, no children in the tripod position. Disappointing. I bring my breakfast, 2 Monster energy drinks and a Twinkie to the register. Just another day of saving lives, I say in my best Scott Stapp accent. The cashier rings up my purchase. That will be $5.17, he says. Excuse me? I point to my uniform. I just said I save lives. Don't you have a discount for first responders? The cashier sighs and turns towards the office. Hey Mac, do we do the discount for ambulance drivers? Ambulance drivers? I clench my fists. My arms start to shake. My vision narrows. Ambulance drivers! Ambulance drivers! I jump on the counter and twist my hips a little so that he can see my Razorback 3000 trauma shears. Do you have any idea how insulting that villainous slur is to the EMS community? It took me 3 long months to earn this patch. I went to the community college every day, when that day was Tuesday or Thursday. I know how to use advanced life-saving devices like AEDs and gauze pads. I did not study high school anatomy for 2 weeks to be called an ambulance driver. How dare you! Not only will this location not be getting my business, but I will be telling the entire EMS community to avoid it as well. Shame on you. Shame. I stormed out. I have no patience for the phrase ambulance driver, especially when it comes from someone who makes 30 cents an hour more than I do. Some people act like we just throw the patient in the back and drive to the hospital. They don't realize that we give them oxygen first. I was angrily posting to my personal EMS subreddit, 4 subscribers and growing every day, about my experience when the radio crackled to life. Elder Care 6, this is Central Dispatch. Could we have you step up your response to Sunset Villa? The patient is verbalizing chest pain. It is on. I flipped the lights and sirens on. Step on it, rookie. Lives are in our hands. Time is brain. I could only grind my teeth in frustration as the rookie drove the bus, pausing at red lights and stop signs. I was not allowed to drive, following my second DUI. At first it was upsetting losing my license, but I've come to realize that not having a license allowed me to focus on what I was truly passionate about: saving lives. I jumped out of the ambulance and grabbed the ambo bag before it had even come to a stop. Stay behind me, rookie. You never know what's waiting for you when you get on scene. Isn't Mrs. Brown waiting for us? He asked. I shook my head. I remember being naive like that when I first joined the service 8 months ago. But the things you see out here, having patients die in your arms, having their dialysis appointments rescheduled, it changes you. One day he will understand. A nurse was waiting for us outside the patient's room. Her vitals are stable. Based on our assessments, we think she's just having some heartburn, but we called EMS just to be... I shoved her aside. Effing SNF nurses. When will they start to care about their patients? Thank God the real medical professionals were now there. I jogged into the room wearing my respirator. BSI, scene safety, I shouted, just like the academy. Look, the rookie said. ALS will be here in a second. Maybe we should just take some vitals and keep an eye on her till they get here. I scoffed in sheer disgust. ALS, the elitist bastards. My instructor used to always say that the best ALS is good BLS. By the way, apparently ALS means Advanced Life Support and BLS means Basic Life Support. This was a phrase that affected me so profoundly that I actually had it tattooed on my chest. And as such, I had little patience for their fancy assessments and IV bags. No, there was no time to wait for ALS and their complicated interventions. The time for action was now. Rookie, start oxygen and push the acid while I perform a capillary refill. We will need to prepare an OPA in case the airway collapses. Then we will stabilize the C-spine. It's so nice to see young men in uniform, Miss Brown said, while knitting a mitten. Just as I had finished giving orders, ALS walked in. Snobby bastards. I was just about to tell them off before I noticed that one of the paramedics was a female. Easily the hottest medic I've seen in my life. A solid 4 out of 10. I cut in front of her and salute. Evening, ma'am. Not to worry. We have already stabilized the patient. Pulse ox is a steady 18 breaths per minute. Distal pulses have been oxygenated. Bilateral bowel sounds are clear. No sign of tension, pneumonia or anaphylaxis. But before I could finish putting the moves on this fine femoid specimen, the lead medic puts his hand on my shoulder. Listen, Steve, why don't you wait outside for a bit? Let us take over. We'll take good care of her. I sighed and hung my head. He was right. That is something they don't teach you in the books. How to recognize when you've gotten too close. When you've become overwhelmed by the crap you've seen. Thankfully, there's a great brotherhood among EMS personnel. We keep an eye on each other, we know when to let a brother know they've had enough. I go outside, take deep breaths of fresh air, try to process what I've been through. I light up a cigarette and begin preparing a landing site for the helicopter using reflective tape. A few minutes later, the ALS crew bring the patient out to the ambulance and my rookie is not far behind. Yeah, looks like a bad case of heartburn, but they are bringing her in just to be safe, he said. I clap him on the back. Great work, rookie. We have saved her life back there. You know that, right? Yeah, sure thing. Back in the ambulance, I check our schedule. Another dialysis run at 10:30. A nursing home transfer at noon. Even after 8 months working the streets, the stress and unpredictable nature of EMS gets to you sometimes. Maybe one day I will go to paramedic school, though I've had my doubts, because EMT sounds a lot cooler than paramedic. Maybe I will become a trauma nurse, or maybe I will go all the way and become a real health professional, a firefighter. I checked Tinder to see if my ambulance profile picture scored me any chicks. 0 matches. Darn, one day the cute tri-age nurse will see how cute I am and say yes to a date. One day. Hey, do you want to get some food since you walked out of that other place? The rookie asks. Nah, my mom is bringing me some chicken nuggets at 11. I'm trying to stay healthy. Elder Care 6 drifts down the open road. Things are peaceful for now, but those tones can drop any minute. And when they do, I will be ready. Well guys, not all heroes wear capes, but some have ambulance profile pictures. By the way, if you want to hear more EMT stories, please tell me in the comments. Oh, and by the way, while you're at it, please drop me some star emojis in the comments and a like if you want to support me. Thank you so much. What? You mean I can drive myself to the ER? So I was conversing with a coworker the other day and I was telling her about some calls that I've had on the ambulance, HIPPA safely, and after a few she suggested I write them down. So I figured I would, so I won't forget, and also to be able to share the experience with others to read. So I will share one that I had one night. One cold winter night, about midnight, the station phone rings and it was PD dispatch telling us that a regular just left PD station after telling her, "Send EMS to my house in about 15 minutes so they can take me to the ER. Baffled, I asked how he got there. She replied, he drove his van. After a few more questions about him, I told her, okay, we will go ahead and head that way. I'm still baffled at this point as to why he drove himself to the PD and then home as opposed to just driving to the ER himself. So by this time we are a few blocks from the EMS station and the tones go off requesting EMS to this regular patient's address. I reply, Medic 1 en route. After a short 7 or 8 minute drive, we arrive to his residence and see him walking out of his door as we pull into the driveway. My partner radios dispatch to let her know we are on scene, and before we can get out of the ambulance, he's already approaching us. I step out and ask him, what's going on tonight? He just replies, I need to go to the hospital. So I then follow up with, well, what is going on tonight that makes you think you need to be seen at the ER? He again quickly replies, I have diarrhea. I ask, how long have you had it? And this time he says, well, I don't anymore, but I did a few days ago. Now remember, it was winter time, so we step into the back of the ambulance where it's warm to take vitals, medical assessment and talk some more. By this time I ask him, did you just drive up to the police station in your van and tell dispatch to give you about 15 minutes to get home and then send EMS so they can take me to the ER? He responded, yeah, because if I drove myself, what would have I done with my van? I told him, you could have just parked it in the ER parking lot. After I told him that, he gave me a look of confusion and said, they won't tow it away? I replied, why no? So he then told me and my partner, well, since you're all already here, might as well just take me. So I again asked him what makes him feel like he needs to go to the ER because we don't see anything abnormal with his present condition. He told us that he just thinks he needs to talk to a doctor. I then told him that if we take him and the ER doctor does not find anything wrong with him, he will be discharged to home. He then stated that he would just call for us to come get him. I advised him that we don't pick up people from the hospital that he wanted to go to. So I guess at this time something turned on the common sense light in his head because he told us, well, it might be best if I just drive myself to the hospital then. I looked at my partner and back at the patient and said, that's a great idea, as my partner is already getting the no treatment and no transport paperwork ready. So at this time he signs all necessary papers and exits the ambulance and gets into his van and drives toward to hospital that he previously mentioned. By this time my partner and I are dying laughing about the absurdity of the situation as we drive back to the station. People are dumb and it keeps me in a job. By the way guys, that reminds me, do you know any people in your life, that love going to the hospital for the smallest things. As an example, here in Thailand, where I am currently on vacation, people love going to the hospital even when they have a cold and then they get antibiotics, which is very common here because they give that stuff for everything. To me, that's absolute craziness, but I don't know about you. Anyway, let's continue. Do not kiss the patient. Frequent flyers, you gotta love them, what else can you do? Some are old, some are frail, and some are simply forgetful, but all are lonely. There have been many, but this is about one. Mrs. X was a lively sort, always full of good news and willing to share the simple joy of living. Oh, she had her problems. Old age and diabetes had taken their toll on her body, but her amazing spirit was doing very well. I swear to you, there was not one single person that ever met this lady that did not come away feeling as if they had found a friend. I had just clocked in and had been told, "We took Mrs. X in this morning around 5. She did not look good." I raised my eyebrows and he said, "Daughter came in and found her babbling." Babbling? I thought. Mrs. X does not babble. Her voice is strong and clear. My spidey sense said neuro and I figured she was probably in ICU by now. First chance I get, I will check on her. A couple of hours later, I was in the ER where they took Mrs. X. So after giving my report and wrapping things up, I wandered around looking for her. I saw her daughter first, and as I walked up to the bed, she gave me a weak smile. Oh. I reached over the rail, took her hand and said, "Hey Mrs. X, how are you doing?" "How are you doing?" she replied. I looked over at the daughter and she just nodded her head. I asked Mrs. X, "Are you okay?" "Are you okay?" she replied. Not good at all. I was right, this is neurological and most likely a slow bleed, but why is she not in OR? "Okay," I said to Mrs. X, "I'll see you later." "I'll see you later," she said, and I saw no recognition in her eyes. I leaned over, kissed her on the forehead, said goodbye to the family and left. The next day I was puttering around the house when the phone rang. It was Sam, who was on shift. "Guess what I found out?" he asked. "I have no idea, you tell me," I said. The words, "Mrs. X has meningitis," caused my blood to run cold. "Oh my god, I kissed her," I blurted out. "You did what? Are you an idiot?" Sam hollered back. "Not now, Sam, I gotta go." And I hung up the phone. After I had composed myself, I realized that this might not be so bad after all. 500 milligrams of Cypro and I should be good to go. Like a good little paramedic should, I contacted infection control at Methodist and let them know what an idiot I was. I was told that the cause of the meningitis had not been confirmed, all persons who had contact with Mrs. X were on the list and that I was now at the top of the list. Great, I finally reached the top of something. That afternoon, infection control called and said everything was okay. She had shingles and the virus had crossed the blood-brain barrier and caused the infection. 3 days after that, Mrs. X was spreading her joy across heaven. Holy crap, I was expecting a happy ending to be honest, but that ending almost made me tear up. Either way, Ripe Stars, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. As I mentioned before, if you enjoy these ambulance/hospital stories, please tell me and I will produce more of them. Also, as you might have noticed, views are down a lot for many Reddit channels, and to be honest, on my channel that's kind of usual at the end of the month for some reason. But of course that means that your support is more needed than ever. So thank you very much to everybody who likes, subscribes, comments every day, and I hope you have a fantastic day and I see you again tomorrow.